Ooh, I think it's starting.
Dude, that was my popcorn.
Do you guys even know what this podcast is about?
I don't know, but I heard it's real.
Dudes, we made it to episode number 2. I take that as a good sign this project is going to make it to, well, at least to episode 3. Thanks for tuning in, and welcome back to Cinema Luciferi, the podcast where we review films with the power of heavy metal. I'm your host, Grim Bub, and today's episode covers the new Patty Jenkins film, Wonder Woman. As a reminder, this podcast features a heavy metal song about the movie in question, followed by a brief discussion of said flick. We'll typically feature a guest musician doing a guitar solo or vocals, and each episode has a corresponding t-shirt and poster design inspired by whatever film we're reviewing. Head on over to cinemaluciferi.com if you want a sick Wonder Woman-inspired pseudo-biomech t-shirt that'll support this show. I'm still experimenting with my illustration style, but I'm pretty proud of how this one turned out. Now, before we can get to our Wonder Woman track, it's the beginning of June. That means we're highlighting a new artist of the month. And wouldn't you know it, June's featured artist is the almighty Drewsif Stalin. Perhaps best known for his metal covers of pop songs, Miley Cyrus' Wrecking Ball and Tezonde's Chocolate Rain are not to be missed. His solo project, Drewsif Stalin's musical endeavors, has been taking the world of progressive metal by storm since at least 2009. Drew does literally everything. He writes, records, mixes, and masters all his own music, from grooving guitars to slamming drums to silky smooth vocals. He's also an extraordinarily talented filmmaker and avid streamer of horror games. If you're into Meshuggah, Tesseract, Beneath the Massacre, or just good music in general, this is your guy. Though he's a one-man producing machine, this dude has no problem assembling merry bands of talented performing musicians to tour the US and UK. I bet you've never seen anyone break as many strings nor rip the strap locks out of their guitar on stage. It's not unusual for Drew's guitar to be splattered with blood by the close of a show, seriously. Though you'll find yours truly doing some guest vocals on his album Comes to an End, it's his latest release, Anhedonia, that needs your attention. Simply put, this album is one of the purest creative expressions, musical or otherwise, that I've yet encountered, and I don't say that lightly. The production is out of this world. I never knew I could headbang to pick scrapes like the end of Ruin. The harmonies at the top of Augury give me goosebumps. Anhedonia Part 1 has one of the most epic vocal moments ever. I won't give it away. Just go listen to the damn album. Anhedonia is available on Bandcamp and Spotify. Drewsif Stalin. It takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Alright, time for today's Metal Jam. I'm extremely happy to feature longtime awesome friend and bandmate Eric Ferguson. He takes it away during the bridge with a guitar solo that will absolutely melt your face. I met Eric way back in 2007 when I joined his metal band, Speciation. Since that fateful first practice, I've been awed by his shredding skills. He rocks an Alexi Laiho signature ESP and has written some of my favorite guitar solos to date. I thought I'd throw him a curveball by giving him a riff in 5/4, but of course he handled it masterfully. If you dig what you hear, be sure to check out our semi-defunct but hopefully one day will rise again band, Vela. Our self-titled album from back in 2013 is available on Spotify. Be sure to check out Eric's solo at the tail end of our track, Nihilist. Now, before I hit play, a quick note regarding this podcast. These songs are going to span the gamut of metal subgenres. This is an arena for experimentation, for me to improve my guitar playing, songwriting, and recording chops. Our previous episode featured a song that was nearly entirely diminished and pretty damn heavy. Today's track leans a little more on the melodic metalcore side, and may or may not even sing a little. All of that is to say, we're going to be all over the place, which is all the more reason that you should tune in to see where in the world of metal we're landing for all of our future episodes. Now, without any further ado, I present to you the second Cinema Luciferi track, To End All Wars. Let's state the obvious. Gal Gadot is marvelous in this film. Beautiful, witty, strong, and with a commanding presence, I think she was the perfect pick to play the Amazonian princess. Chris Pine's performance ain't bad either, though he awkwardly stammers over some of his lines a bit too much. The story is a brilliant image of the psychological progression from magical thinking to a confrontation with the overwhelming moral complexity of reality, particularly that of war. Like the Buddha, Diana is raised within a paradisical realm, free from all danger and suffering. She's saturated in the creation myth of her people, that they, the Amazonians, were created as a bridge to ameliorate and harmonize the interactions amidst a flawed and warring race of men. Ares, the god of war, rebels and slays all the other gods save Zeus, who then tucks the Amazonians away on a hidden island. There they live in peace and safety, though ever preparing for an Armageddon with Ares. Diana readily internalizes this narrative. Her purpose is to confront and trample the god of war, freeing all of humankind from his bewitching and restoring the rest of the world to its rightful order. Some of the compositing is a little wonky early on in Themyscira, the veiled Amazonian Shangri-La. The sequence featuring Mongol-like horseback archery acrobatics is extremely fun, though a little over the top. At the height of Diana's training, an oracle appears. Stevens, a British spy, crashes his plane just offshore and is fatefully rescued by Diana. Here, we get our first glimpses of her unwavering and unsophisticated moral compass. Stevens' tales of the horrors of the First World War shake her to her core, and she simply cannot understand why her mother, the Queen, along with their senators, refuse to act. To her, it is a black and white issue. The sheer magnitude of suffering plays perfectly into the myth which she lives by, and so Ares must be behind it. She so blindly believes this to be the case that she takes concrete action to disobey her mother and abandon her utopian sanctum. Once she leaves, she can never return, a clear image of the loss of innocence every person encounters along their path of psychological development as they encounter the world. As Diana sails into the distance, one of the Amazonians laments to the queen that she didn't tell her daughter the whole story. Of course not. Had she done so, had she given the hero the full picture of what the world is really like, then her confrontation with Ares, the chaotic element in the story, bedeviling man's minds toward all things violent, would come about too quickly. There is a long path that must be trodden, a series of developmental milestones everyone must hit. Diana, the hero, is representative of each and every one of us. The child actress who plays 8-year-old or so Diana, Lily Aspel, does a marvelous job. She's excited, astonished, determined. When she looks into the Excalibur paralleling blade known simply as God Killer, bonus points for such a brutal name for an ancient weapon, by the way, her eyes convincingly convey both fascination and a resolve to realize her destiny. Young actors can really go either way during establishing flashbacks, but this was an impressive performance. I'll note here also that the animated creation myth sequence was equally impressive. The compositions felt like hypnotically projection-mapped altarpieces with semi-chiaroscuro lighting and lightning flashes and beautifully painted textures. I would have loved to see this integrated further into the film to further fill in plot points related to the stories of Ares. Anyway, beautiful stuff. Diana and Stevens travel to London, where she is exposed to the layers of bureaucracy, misogyny, cowardice, and all-around ineffectiveness governing mankind's politics and war-making. Her conceptualization of the world is very much still black and white, good and evil. Her boldness in speaking up to Stevens' superiors is refreshing and makes one feel a bit shameful about how we allow our world to be. Her naivete begets a childlike strength that is on track for a high-speed collision with the gritty reality of trench warfare as she heads to the front. So here, we need to talk about the cheese factor. This is a solid superhero film and was certainly refreshing to see coming out of DC, but it was a little bit campy, and that's fine. In my opinion, that's exactly how a Wonder Woman film should be. Being a little too serious or even going full-on ferocious, savage grittiness like Logan would have been a mistake, I think. It's fine to chuckle a bit at how over-the-top some of the sequences could be. Personally, I laughed out loud when Diana first ascends the trenches and begins traversing no man's land. It goes from this extraordinarily motivating, "screw you guys, I'm gonna let shine my impeccable moral compass and manifest the raw power of absolute blind faith in oneself," to a painfully drawn-out bullet-time catwalk. The action sequence that follows is badass, but these moments of, oh man, they went full cheese, do pop up from time to time in this one. As I said, personally, I don't mind that at all. Diana's moral rectitude pays off, and she, along with Stevens and his band of merry mercenaries, emancipate a German-held town. In a particularly powerful shot, Diana emerges as savior figure atop a crumbling church at the center of town. I'm going to jump ahead to the end of the film now. This whole time, Diana has been projecting her conception of the motivating force for evil onto a concrete personality, this German commander named Ludendorff. He's definitely a monster of sorts, but in slaying him, Diana finds that he is just a man, and comes face to face with the terrifying reality that, as Solzhenitsyn put it, the line between good and evil runs through the heart of every woman and man. There isn't a cornerstone to be knocked out, upon which all of the scaffolding of humankind's destructive acts is delicately balanced. No, the world is much more convoluted, much more personal. She needs to decide whether or not to abandon this project altogether or to continue in the struggle against an evil without a face. Yet, the evil has a face. As Stevens runs off to stop a catastrophic delivery of poison gas, Diana encounters an actual manifestation of the god of war, Ares, in a reflection. He's personalized. The anger, the hatred, the violence arises from within. In fact, Ares is revealed to be one of the commanders from the British side of the conflict, most unexpected. Two parallel battles then play out, the reality of human beings making sacrifices to change the course of history, and the mythological battle between the resurrected hero figure of Wonder Woman and the archetypical Lucifer, Ares. The climax even comes complete with the last temptation sequence.
If only you knew the power of the dark side.
Stephen's sacrifice gives Diana a pure image of humanity's benevolent potential. He ascends to the heavens, piloting a hijacked plane full of poison gas, stares deeply into the camera, and self-detonates. Diana, enraged, goes Super Saiyan and steps through a Kung Fury-feeling fight sequence, decimating a horde of Ares minions. She defeats Ares and has come to terms with the moral ambiguity of the world and recommits herself to a refined myth of serving humanity. A few more scattered thoughts about this film. The coolest VFX sequence was when Ares Sailor Moons in the torrent of fire, assembling his armor and peeling molten steel from his face mask. While the CGI was solid throughout, there were 300 too many moments of 300 inspired slow-motion slices and kicks and flips. Once or twice is badass. It's a little too much to use in nearly every significant fight sequence. The height of this silliness is definitely Robin Wright's bullet time 3-arrow shot at the top of the film, when the German troops stumble upon and attack the Themyscira. I'm halfway through the 5th season of House of Cards, and let me tell you, seeing her in this film last night threw my brain for a loop. The German soldiers pulling their gas masks off after Ares is defeated was an effective way to communicate they're being freed from his war spell. The composition of Diana's center frame with the rising sun of a new day behind was well composed, and should have been the closing shot in my opinion. In the end, I give this film a 4 out of 5. Expect a bit of campiness, and expect to be feeling some serious girl power on your way out of the theater. I'm very much looking forward to Wonder Woman 2.
If you survived this episode, why not fuel our unrelenting